Welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast, brought to you by 2 Notes Audio Engineering. 2 Notes is a leader in the market for load box, cabinet, and mic simulators. Gone are the days of having ISO rooms or having to record an amp at ear-bleeding volumes to capture that magic tone. The Torpedo Live, Reload, and Studio allow you to crank your amp up as loud as you want, but record silently. Check out www.2-notes.com for more info. And now your host, EYAL Levy.
All right, so welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast. I am EYAL Levy. With me is one of my favorite people from this horrible, awful business. I've actually known him a lot longer than I'd care to admit because it makes me feel old as hell. Going on over 10 years since we shared one really nasty bus experience together and got to know each other pretty well. One of the best drummers in the game, one of the most talented musicians I've met in the game. Doesn't really act like it, but he's known in production circles for being every band that he's in, and no offense to anybody else, but just one talented motherfucker. So John Boecklin, hello.
That was one very awesome intro. I'm very humbled by that. Thank you very much, Hale.
I was just telling the truth. And I have a question about your last name before we go any further.
Okay.
You got like the Worcester of last names, because I've known you to be pronounced Boecklin, but you spell it Boecklin. How does that work?
You threw D on the end of it. It's German, but it's not Berkland. Yeah, you threw a D on there, like Berkland. It's Boecklin, and yeah, it's not pronounced any way it's spelled. It's German, and in Germany, it's like there's no E. It's just Boecklin in Germany, with the 2 dots over the O. I forget what those are called. But so it's Bierflin. So my family came over here. I guess they were, got rid of the 2 dots and put in the E, and then looked at, well, we could walk around for the rest of our lives saying, with that.
All right, thank you. I've been actually wondering this forever. So, all right. So the reason that I invited you on here, other than just to shoot the shit, is because this podcast is generally production oriented, and lots of times we talk about how you're going to be in the studio and pass the guitar around, hopefully, and sometimes the guy that wrote the riff, or sometimes the guy that plays guitar in the band, is not going to be the guy that sounds best playing the riff. And sometimes it'll be the guy in the band that you least expect. And you're that guy in the band that the guitar gets passed to a lot. Yeah, you don't act like, some big guitar guy or anything like that, yet it's just how things go, is people pass you instruments. And I know once we were sound checking, loading into a club on tour together, and I started hearing one of my songs coming through the PA, like someone picked up a guitar and started playing it, and it sounded better than the other guitar player in my band, and obviously it sounded better than me because he was better than me. So I was like, who the hell is playing? And at the same time, he was thinking the same thing because he heard the guitar coming through the PA and was like, God, that sounds better than Al. Who the fuck's playing? And it was you. It was the drummer from some other band. So, how did this happen? Have you always, do you play drums first, or did you take other instruments just as seriously as drums, or does this all just come naturally? What's the deal?
I started playing guitar first, and I played on acoustic guitar probably maybe 2 years before I started playing drums, and the only thing I ever did on guitar, I never took one lesson. I never looked to really learn songs. If I tried, I just tried by ear. And then I found drums, and the guitar really kind of got put down for a while. And I got to college, and I was in a shitty dorm room, and I had brought guitar, and that's when I started playing I think every day I would just on Master of Puppets, the album, and learn it, and then just play to it with rhythms. And I'm pretty sure that's where any of my skills came from, like in terms of. But on acoustic guitar, and then when I transferred it to electric, I was like, oh, I sound pretty tight. You know, that's it, pretty much.
Is that where the strength comes from? Because you've got a lot more strength in your hands than a lot of guitar players do, which I think is where you get a lot of your insane tone from. Is I noticed that you pick a lot harder than a lot of guitar players, and you got a lot stronger grip, which is interesting because you're not one of these guys that pulls everything out of tune, but it kind of makes sense to hear that you played on acoustic. And when I was trying to get really good at guitar, sometimes I would warm up on acoustic and then start practicing on electric. You know, it's the same thing as when you see a baseball player warming up with like 3 bats instead of 1, sort of thing.
I just like couldn't really. Warming up, sure, yeah, but the way I learned guitar has its limits, where because of the technique I learned, and I didn't care to be a guitar player, so I never learned solos and stuff, but the way my technique is and how I learned is so rough and physical that, yeah, like when I try and play leads and stuff, it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like I can't even begin to grasp it. So it's limited, but worked very well for what I wanted to do, if that makes sense, you know? But it's not something I'd be like, you want to be the best, do what I did, because you know what I mean? It's just kind of, it's all rhythm playing, and it works for me, you know. But I do realize, like, also some people just don't have the ability, and I've been going a lot through this with drumming, is just realizing when you're doing something and it's not very good. Some people are just like, yeah, sounds great, I'm doing it, right? You know, and and they just don't really. They don't have the ability to look at what they're doing and go, that's not great. I should change my technique or work on changing my technique to get it to where it needs to be. You know, I don't know. And I think that's kind of where how I became. I've never called myself a guitar player, but if I was to, those are using the acoustic, playing the tempo style metal that I do, and this, you know, it's not like there's not many like Dream Theater moments or so. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's pretty.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's maybe not the most technical stuff on earth, but to sound awesome playing anything takes skill. You can play anything mediocre, but to sound authentic and to have like the right tone in your hands, that in and of itself is a skill.
It is interesting what you're talking about too, about bending out of tune. I know a lot of dudes that do that, and I don't know why I don't do that, because I do have a really hard grip and stuff, but I guess I'm just go back to what I'm saying. I'm conscious of working on that, you know, and I did. Now I don't have that problem, you know.
Well, you've got a really good ear, so I imagine that if you were to bend it out of tune, you would be able to actually hear it and then correct yourself.
Yeah, I just don't have that problem like anymore, like I did when I was maybe at 18 or something, you know. Yeah, if I did do it out, I'd be like, oh, let's do that again. That sounded like shit, you know.
So when you're solving problems in your technique, is it really that simple? Just that sounds like shit, let's do it again? Or do you sit there and like analyze what you're doing wrong and how to get better at it?
No, there was only a couple things that I would try and change, but I can honestly say guitar playing came much more natural to me than drumming. So it's like for alternating fast death metal picking, the technique that my body chose to do first is completely the right way to do it, and it's easy as fuck for me, you know. Or the only thing that I struggle with that I can't quite get is really, really fast down picking. Like I still work on my technique with that, but I don't really care that much, so I don't like sit there I don't wake up in the morning just like, can't do puppets today, like, oh boy, like you know. It's just like once in a while, like, yeah, I never really got that, because it would be nice to be able to do down picking at like 210 kind of effortlessly, you know, the way I can do alternate picking, you know, death metal strumming, and so it's just effortless to me. That's the way it's, you know, if it's hard to do it, that means you're doing it wrong. So I kind of have always been taught. So no, I'm not the best at, like, when I say I can like analyze my playing and fix it, there are some things I still struggle with, but at least I know it's bad. I can't say that when dudes don't know it's bad, you know?
Well, I mean, I know you keep saying that you're not the best guitar player, and like, I get that, like, it's a whole other kind of world to be like a Jeff Loomis or Emil Wursler or something.
Yeah.
That's a whole other kind of thing. But
I'm just not sure the listeners. I don't know your like demographic or how in depth. So I always watch my words very quickly before I'm like, yeah, I'm like real fucking good. Like, it's like, because.
Well, the thing is that we talk all the time about the difference between a really good musician that's good at showing off versus a musician that's really, really good at sounding good on songs. And that when you're producing, you want to find the guy that's good at the songs. And that's a whole different kind of skill set. And that, again, it's not necessarily going to be the guy that practices guitar the most. It's not necessarily going to be the guitarist. Sometimes it ends up being the bassist. Sometimes it's the drummer. Sometimes it's the singer. Sometimes it is the guitarist. But it's what you're looking for as a producer is the guy that sounds the most authentic with the songs. And so I just think it's interesting that this has been happening to you for over 10 years now. Like, I actually think I met you at Sonic Ranch in 2006 or something.
Yeah.
Or 5.
I remember that you guys came through and I think I had just tracked Clouds Over California and then like walked out the door and you're like, what's up?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. I seem to remember from back then, too, you were already kind of like being dominant with your guitar playing. So I just want to kind of get inside your head because I think that it's a style of musician that doesn't get praise very often, but it's the exact guy you're trying to identify as a producer.
Okay.
Because, sometimes these guys that, like, practice all day and try to be really good, and you hear them play songs, and it sounds okay, but it doesn't always have the crushing, like, tone or, like, the emotional connection or whatever it is. So, like...
Me not being a producer, I don't get to come across train wrecks and, just things that aren't quite there as much as you do. So, it's hard to me to be like, oh, yeah, I totally know what you're talking about, but,
Okay, well, how about this? Without sounding like a dick or without saying anything mean, because that's totally not where I want to go.
Yeah.
Is there ever situations where it was like, you play the riff, no, you play the riff, and then somehow it's like, we're just going to give it to John?
Yeah, that happened. I mean, but the point of saying that is because you asked, not because of like, listen, I'm here to make sure that everyone knows that like when the guitar was passed around, sometimes it ended up me a lot, like
yeah.
It's not the point, but I would say most of it was because I wrote it, so it would just be like, well, in Devildriver, which was most of my guitar experience in the studio was if you wrote it, you play it, and then as things kept going on and on, I just wrote more and more. So it was like kind of just natural like that. You know what I mean? But I did discover in 2005 doing the second record when Colin Richardson was like, well, let's try him. And then I watched everyone get excited. And that was like really kind of like, wow, like they actually think I'm good at doing this rhythm stuff, So, and then I kind of took pride in it, and had fun doing it. And, that's where it started, I guess, It was fun to watch a renowned dude like Colin Richardson be like, yeah, that's your right hand is like really, really fucking awesome. And I was like, wow, that's cool,
And was it something where ever in the past, did it ever cause tension? Or is it something where everyone was just like, man, he sounds awesome, you do it?
I'd say it was both. I think,
and I guess, and I'm wondering, being on the side, on the musician's side, if you have any tips for producers on how they could best approach this in a diplomatic way.
Yeah, that all depends on the dynamic of the band. I think, I'm trying to think. Like, it's a very good question. There's always going to be a little bit of tension when someone starts doing a lot of the work that's not their instrument, Some dudes took it lighter than others or whatever, but it was never like a boiling point or anything. And for some reason, I actually think it caused more tension between the other guitar players than me with both of them, if that makes sense. Like, do you know?
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it kind of like fucking. I don't really know how to put it, but this you're talking about the really like there was some issues with it long time ago, and then as we just grew up, and it was kind of like, well, I wrote it, or if someone sounded the best doing something, do it. And then it became accepted that, and like we grew out of that little baby phase. Well, wait a minute now, I'm the guitar player, so I should be doing it. Or, it's like, I think within a week or two that kind of brushed over. You know what I mean?
Well, normally, in my experience, veteran bands don't have those issues anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and by veteran, I mean past their first album.
Yeah.
So not even really veteran. Basically, non-baby bands don't have those issues anymore. But a lot of our listeners, I mean, some of them work huge records, but a whole lot of them are still like at the point of just now starting to make a living at production, or, going to be making a living within the next year, or still working with smaller bands. And smaller bands is where you see lots of these issues take place. Because I think that with veteran bands, once they've already gone through and seen the benefit of letting the guy that sounds best play the parts, because it sounds better and you do better, a better sounding record is just a better record generally, not always, but generally. They just get it, they get in line. They're just generally happier to just make a record happen well. But I think when they're younger, they've still got shit to prove.
Yeah, like who wants to sit there and struggle in the studio is like my first advice like to give. Like if you're struggling and someone else can do it, hand it over. You're paying for this time. You're paying, and you're causing frustration. I remember when I couldn't do parts, certain technique parts, I would call the other guys and say, hey, do this now. Like I don't even think twice about it. It's just like the recording process just makes it go as smooth as possible. So handing over something is get rid of your ego and just get it done. That's how I kind of always viewed it. But as a producer, to give a producer advice of how to approach it, you got to look at the age you're dealing with, the maturity level, But in general, you should be like, I'm the fucking producer, not using the word fuck, but like, this guy sounds the best. No one can come up with a different scenario of why we shouldn't use him then. And the band should learn on their own how to fight about it,
So the time to fight about it is not in front of the producer, basically. Like
absolutely not. Like, because the guy who's not the best is going to look the dumbest. The guy sticking up for himself, like, who sucks. Like, it's like, you don't want to be that guy. And most people at that moment don't realize they are that guy. Hey, so that little fist shove, I'm going to give it my best and I'm trying hard. So, just give me my chance again. It's like everyone's rolling their eyes at you behind your back, so it's like, yeah, and you want to become professional, so it's like you should go into the studio, hopefully with able to demo some stuff before you go in and know who's the best at what, because you want to, when you leave a session, you don't want a producer pulling his hairs out like, I can't stand these guys or whatever, and you want to look like you're a team that has everything figured out, and that's how I always want to present ourselves in front of producers that I was nervous to be around,
Yeah, interestingly enough, I'm thinking about the things you were just saying in terms of me being around Devildriver both on tour and in the studio. Mm-hmm. And I always got that vibe that, like, whenever you guys had a problem, you would cut off the rest of the world and figure it out within your family unit and then present the solution to the world. And I've seen other bands that I look up to do that. Like Black Dahlia Murder would deal with problems like that too, and they're ultra professional. They would not ever air their issues in front of people that are not in the circle.
Well, I'm not saying I never did that, but
well, nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect, but that's such a whole big can of worms just about how bands operate. That's such a broad discussion. Like, some people expose themselves completely, like a Lamb of God. They, on their DVD they show the members fighting and stuff, and that drew attention. That drew attention to them. Their honesty worked for them. For me, I always thought the inner turmoil was embarrassing to, expose. And so I just like to handle shit quietly and neatly, That's just kind of how I am as a person. Like, God, when you see, how it is, or you see band members on tours bickering at each other at a sound check in front of, all the staff, and you're just like, oh my God, like, pull it together, boys. Like,
it's totally like a daddy hit mommy at the dinner table kind of thing.
Well put. I don't have the wit you have right now, but this is fucking beautiful. I just think that stuff is embarrassing, and I think it stems from Metallica and always believing that, like, those guys were good at keeping their their shit tight, you know, and I always look, because you never
until they release that one movie.
You know what I mean, though. But I'm talking about when I was like 13.
Yeah, no, totally.
You know, it's like they were always a force, and like they never. You know, you never knew if they did. Everyone knows that Lars did drugs now, but like back in the day, everything about them was a mystery and their problems very much. You know.
Yeah, totally. I very much admired that style of working, and I always appreciated bands from the studio end of it who would operate like that. It's just a lot easier to deal with. Let's talk about your drumming, because that's a whole other thing. We've been talking about guitar this whole time, but I mean, people know you as a drummer.
Yeah, but you know what sucks is I like to tell anyone who's listening, I'm very uninformative when it comes to guitar playing. I don't own a guitar right now. It's pretty sad. And that's like kind of my level of interest in guitar. It's like I have a little beat up acoustic thing I need to do writing for, but I can't give anyone. I'm just not good at giving advice about it. But I do have a passion for it, so I apologize if I didn't come across as pro, because I'm not. You know.
Okay, before we move on to drums, let me just give you a quick rebuttal about what I think you explained on guitar.
Yeah.
So you're not like a guitar player by trade. I think you're a musician by trade. And so you work with the tools in front of you to get the job done, whether it happens to be on guitar or drums or bass or writing or whatever. You're just a musician and a multi-instrumentalist. And so you've never, in my opinion, you've never really cared about guitar per se, other than having it be basically a conduit for riffs.
Yeah.
Which are parts of songs. And over the years, you've gotten so good at playing your own songs that you sound better at them than guys that are actual guitar players who care about guitar. And I think that the main thing that people should take away from that is that you, like you said at the very beginning, you've always had a keen awareness for when something you're doing sounds fucked up, and then changing your physical approach to it, not making a big deal out of it. Just, this isn't easy. It should be easy, but it's not easy, or it sounds out of tune, or I'm struggling, or whatever. Let's change it.
Yeah.
Let's fix it.
See, we should have had this conversation prior. Should have wrote that down and just leaded the whole combo with that. That was beautiful.
Well, no, thank you. But I like, these podcasts are all improv because it's weird. We tried earlier on, we would try to pre-seed that kind of stuff, and then sometimes it would just come off as like robotic.
Yeah.
Like a news anchor kind of thing. It's better to get to those points naturally, in my opinion.
And one thing I left out too, which just kind of clicked, is like, yeah, when I was in the studio, sometimes I played my own riff better or something else better, but I also probably guarantee you I prepared harder than the other guys, like in terms of
How so?
guitar. Like if I knew I was recording a song, I'd play it a lot. Like, you know, so I cared about a job that I knew I had to do a lot. And I'm not saying they didn't care, but sometimes I would probably, even some producers have called me a bit of a workhorse, you know, like sometimes I don't know when to quit or whatever. Sometimes I just keep going, and I have a little bit of a session compulsive thing about getting things right. So I come in very prepared. So that might be another reason too. Like work ethic is a motherfucker. It can get you just a little bit further than the guy who's a lot more talented than you, you know?
I've actually known a lot of people over the years who maybe aren't the most talented guy, but who just outwork everybody, and their careers are better for it. And I also have known quite a few people who are just God-level talented, whose careers aren't anywhere near what they should be because they're fucking lazy.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe natural talent comes with laziness, because he didn't have to try that hard to get that good. I don't know.
they're like the hot girl of musicians. No one's ever told them bad things. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I never had a problem working though. So even if it's a real shitty job, like when I was like 14 working at McDonald's, I'd take it seriously. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, okay. So on the topic of preparing, how would you prepare? Like, as you say, you play a lot. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I would just go play guitar in my room like, okay, I'd go through each song and I would, whip out the click track, but like a metronome. I don't even have a computer. And most of the times we were talking about, I didn't even have a computer. So I would just put out the old metronome and I would just play to it, usually with acoustic guitar for a long time, and just make sure that all the picking sounds right or whatever. And just go through it when it sounds good. And then normally you just strap on an electric and it sounds like better than you'd imagine it would,
Yeah, and you would just do that until...
I just do it until
it's ready.
Not like I would never be like, oh, okay, I think I've got this. I would just practice it every day until it was time to record,
Oh, okay.
And then I would have that break because I would do drums first and then guitar second. So I don't know. I never played guitar during that break. And then I'd go back and I just usually hit it pretty fresh. Yeah.
Perfect time to start talking about drums. Do you approach drums the same way you approach guitar in terms of it's just a means to an end? It's a means to play your songs? Or do you take drums? I mean, I don't want to say that you don't take drums seriously or music seriously, because you do. But like, do you consider yourself a drummer, or is it the same sort of thing as with guitar?
No, I definitely consider myself a drummer. Like if someone asks me, what do you play? I'm not one of those guys like, well, I'm a trumpet player, guitar player, I usually say I'm a drummer. And then if they care to get into more details, then I'll say, I also play this. But drums are, however, I am a lazy drummer when it comes to, especially in the beginning, like I don't know much about drums. I have a hard time talking shop with dudes because it was like I was more focused on being a drummer and a songwriter because I was writing a lot of the material for the Devildriver band I was in, and it was also, since the age of 23, it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and so like that was just all I cared about. I wasn't like the drummer who was left to his own devices to have the time to worry about just making himself a better drummer. I was more focused on just writing songs. So I never got to be that nerd. I didn't really have the time to do that. That's a lie, but I could have found the time, but it just wasn't at the top of my list. The top of the list was...
I was about to say, did you have the interest? Because lots of times the songwriter guys don't care to be the nerd guy.
Yeah, I didn't. But I liked to push my... I loved it when you get compliments on drumming. Oh, the drums on that record are sick or whatever, that felt great to me. So I also wanted to, I had a drive to keep getting more and more extreme. But I think in general with the band I was in, that just meant faster. I don't know. So I definitely, towards the end of that band, I hit a huge creative rut where when I was left to my own devices as just a drummer for a bit, I went back and I took lessons and I did a lot of shit and I learned a lot more shit that I should have learned when I was 23. And I do have regret. If I had known what I know now, then I would have been able to make Devildriver a lot more original.
It still kicked ass.
Yeah, no, I'm not knocking the band, but
But I mean, fair enough. If it's one of those things where, of course, if we were better, then everything we would have done would have been better.
Yeah,
I feel you on that. I guess if I was better looking, I'd be hotter.
But also the way Devildriver grew, there was kind of like a cuteness to it because we were learning how to get better as we went, and some of the stuff is so especially on the first record and even the second, some of it is so simple and stupid that if I know what I know now, I could have never written that because I was like, oh my god, that's terrible. Who the fuck would But there's an honesty and a simplicity to it that worked for us. So I guess I wouldn't change a thing, but damn, when I think about those songs now, I'm like, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that.
You wouldn't change a thing, but if you had the chance, you would change a thing. Probably.
Maybe. Probably. I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of just it's just going off the top of my mind right now about how I feel about that stuff. It's great, but sometimes I'm like, oh, it's terrible. Sometimes I'm like, it's awesome. Yeah, I don't know. Depending on the day.
I understand the feeling. Well, I can tell you, as a producer, so I've never produced your drums, but I've been closely involved in the recording of your drums. And you're kind of like a producer's dream drum-wise, too. You want to get things done fast.
Yeah. I hate recording.
Yeah, you want to get things done fast. You hit super hard. You come in super prepared, and you don't want to leave. You don't want to leave until it's done, and you take direction very, very well. But also, there's certain things that you won't do. Like you will not play kick pads. Like at least in my experience, you won't play kick pads, and it's not an argument with you because you actually know how to play the kick drum parts. But that said, how do you also put in that amount, the same type of preparation that you put in on guitar? Are you sitting there on drums like the other half of the day?
Yeah, I put in more preparation on drums than I do guitar.
So do you divide the day up or something?
No, it's
well, because you just made it sound like
it was one thing all the time.
You sit there all day on acoustic guitar getting ready for a record, but you left out the fact that your main instrument is drums, and you're also getting ready for drums for a record.
Yeah, you just do both in the day, like however it comes to you. Like
so kick drum.
I'll do this first.
Kick drum with the right foot while fretting the left hand of the guitar.
Yeah, no, I mean you just go to the room and you play drums, and I get back and I know I have to do guitar, and go over that. But drums take up more, and they're mentally more exhausting, and and without using kick pads, I always thought, like, this might go back to a little bit what we're saying about, like, wanting to present yourself correct in front of people that you look up to or that will be talking about you. And, like, if you're a band going into a studio, it's like, first thing you don't want to do is like, all right, just so we're clear, like, let's get out the kick pads because my fucking feet suck and I don't want to make your job hell. It's like, it's nice to come in and be like, no, I don't want to do that because I want to have it be an original sound if we can get one. Sometimes it ends up getting sampled later on anyways, but just presenting yourself in that kind of that mode will be like, all right, if you can really do it, do it. Because I remember there's always been like, you really want to do it? You sure? It's like, yeah, I do, because it's like, I know for a fact someone like you will be like, oh yeah, he wasn't an editing nightmare or something. You know what I mean?
Well, however, if I suggest using no. The however is actually not about you. The however is, yes, you're correct. My preference will always be if the drummer is like, I don't want to use kick pads, and then they actually, walk the walk. That's the best of all worlds. But how often do they walk the walk? That's a bummer. More often than not, you want them to use the kick pads just because they're not as dedicated. Like you said earlier, work ethic's a bitch. And, most guys don't have the work ethic, and so you want them to use the kick pads because they're not going to learn the kick parts as well as they should. And then it does become not just an editing nightmare, but a mixing nightmare because you got the kick all in the room mics and the overheads, and it's like, fuck.
But also, to listeners, anyone out there, using kick pads doesn't mean you can't play double bass or you can't do it the right way, because there's plenty of phenomenal drummers that just know that. Like, I know Shannon uses pads in the studio. I was just in a session.
Shannon uses pads now?
I think he did. With Mark Lewis was saying that he did, and like I went into a session with
when
with Shannon.
Because I'm just gonna say because Mark and I worked on Battlecross with Shannon, and Shannon.
Oh, no pads.
No pads.
Okay, maybe I'm remembering what Mark said.
He wouldn't even like consider it.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's changed since then. That was 2013.
No, then you're totally right, because maybe I was thinking of
you're thinking
else.
of dude from Whitechapel. Ben from Whitechapel, because Ben from Whitechapel uses pads, and he's phenomenal.
He is phenomenal. Okay, yeah. I guess I didn't know Ben. See, I thought Ben used real drums. That's funny. But yes, Ben is a phenomenal drummer, and it's like it depends on the drummer too. It's like, did anyone care that Obzen was programmed drums? Like, no, because everyone knows he can do it. But then, like when Fear Factory did it with that record, The Industrialist, it's like, oh, like, it's like I don't know. You're just doing it to save money, but like I can't get on the forums and care too much. But it's funny how some people think one band can do it and it's a disgrace, and another one doesn't. It's totally fine, but definitely. Because people know Thomas can fucking do it, and there's no question there. So
you know who brought the kick pads into our lives? Like the person who like pushed for them when back in like 2009 or 10, and where I was like, I don't know. It was fucking Kevin Talley.
Tally.
Yeah, he because he was starting to do his own recordings.
I do. I remember him saying that all the time, like every day.
Yeah, 5 times a day. He discovered that if he could use kick pads, it was even easier to record, and so then he tried to use kick pads on a Doth record, and I was the one who was not into it. But then he convinced me, and I think he convinced all of us. And I mean, it's not like he couldn't play.
It's very true. Yeah. I was just in on. See, I don't know if saying this stuff is wrong or not, but I don't think anyone really fucking cares. But like, I was just in Lamb of God's latest session with Josh Wilbur, and I was surprised to know that they were using pads as well. Like, and they were in the B room at NRG. It's like you're given that kind of the records that have been cut in that room. And it's like at the end of the day, sometimes in metal, they're just like, dude, we're just not going to use the sound that we get in here for like fast syncopated shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're causing yourself problems if there's any problem with the kick performance whatsoever, or other reasons, and you have it in the room mics and the overheads. You're causing yourself problems later. So yeah, it definitely doesn't mean you're a bad drummer at all. But still, that said, you coming in, you had pride about your drums, and you wanted to play them all and get it right, but get it right quickly and not fuck around.
Yeah, because I always had maybe you could even call it a fear, but I just never wanted to have a bad reputation as a shitty drummer. Like, just that was always at the core of me. And, like when you start going and doing records with Colin Richardson, it's like, you just know those people are they're gonna thumbs up and thumbs down you behind your back. Oh, how was that guy? Blah, blah, blah. I always wanted to give it my best and be as prepared as possible for that reason. Because who knows, then if you do well, there's been times where you get calls again. That's when you know it's like, oh, that's awesome, because they must hurt.
Well, I mean, those types of recommendations from people like that go a really long way too. Like, as opposed to, I remember once Colin told me that he considered this one drummer he recorded raw material. Like, I forget what the context. It was just like about how much editing they had to do. He was like, well, he's definitely raw material. It's like, wow, I guess that means never call this guy again.
Yeah. So, it's like when you're in the studio, like I said, I'm not quite sure what kind of listeners are here, but if it's geared towards giving people advice about recording, it's like, if you're a musician, go in holding your head high with the most prepared you can be, because you never know where it can lead to with a suggestion from somebody else.
And what kind of so you have worked with a bunch of different producers. What type of approach do you think works best with you? Like, do you prefer a drill sergeant, or you just want someone that's like a bro, or like super intense, or a little more hands off? Like, what if you were to tell me about like your ideal production experience, what are you looking for in a producer or an engineer?
Well, first and foremost, like, their track record. What have they done? It's again, do I want to be working with this person in the first place? Which we've had the pleasure, I have, of picking the producers that the band collectively wanted and agreed upon. So everyone, wherever we stepped into, we wanted to be with the people that were there, and then I didn't know them usually. But I work perfectly with someone who I don't have much of a relationship with, and who maybe we don't have the same sense of humor or not. And because if they just want to work and get it done, that's great with me. Like, I can work 14 hours a day, but it's also nice to have a friend involved. Like, I know you and I have, we would pass Mark Lewis's stuff, and you would help edit, and I don't know, we would fucking laugh. That's all we did.
Yeah. It was like that on tour too.
Yeah, and that makes things easy. At the end of the day, if they're doing their job, I'm a very forgiving person, like in terms of personalities, or if people don't do things that I don't like. I just don't really care. I'm just like, hey, fuck, sounds great. Let's just keep working. Like the only thing that can bug me sometimes is like if things don't roll on time, you know? Because when you have, you know, a manager breathing, like when you're approaching that last week and you're not where you're supposed to be, and if it's falling on one person's shoulders particularly, that's never really quite happened to us. It's came a little close sometimes, but then you start feeling that pressure of, you know, hey, now you're not going to make as much money as we thought you were because this budget's going, you're taking too long, you know. So just as long as no one's slacking off, which I've never come into play. Like I've never had a producer who just like drinks too much or like just wants to hang out half as much as, you know, like, I don't know, you're paying all these people a lot of money. So I've never really had to do a record with a total unprofessional person, you know? So I guess I'm a little blessed in that area, you know?
I hope that at the point that people were getting your budgets that it weeded out the dudes who just wanted to hang out all day.
I get, but like, you know, there's got to be producers out there with drug problems and like drink too much and stuff. You know, it's like, but I just fortunately have never done a record with someone like that. You know, it's like, yeah. So it's just like, you know, where's fucking Bob? It's fucking 7 o'clock at night. He's still not here. Like, you know, I don't know. So
yeah, I've definitely heard of guys like that. So I want to ask you a few questions about life after Devildriver, but I don't want to ask you things that you've been asked a million times or whatever.
I haven't really done a lot of interviews. So
okay, good.
Yeah. So
well, I mean, first of all, I just want to congratulate you on the new band, Bad Wolves, and how awesome it is. And it's like a collection of buddies of mine from different time periods in my life too, playing in the band. So it's kind of cool seeing all of you guys do this. And it's also cool seeing, for people that don't know, so it's got like Doc Coyle and Tommy Vext in it as well, who are just guys that have been in the game for a while. I don't know the other guys in the band, but I'm sure they're awesome.
Chris Kane is the other guitar player, and Kyle Conkeal is the bass player.
And I love them both, even though I don't know them. But it's just, you know, sometimes when you get like quote unquote super groups, I don't want to call it that, it's not the right word, but like when you get these bands that are like after the band that the person is known for, like, you know, you're known for Devildriver, Doc's known for God Forbid. Sometimes when the ex dudes from certain bands get together, it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And
well, let's start off with calling the band a supergroup. Like, right. In my opinion, a supergroup is usually combined. When I'm going to call someone a supergroup, that's combined with like platinum plus selling artists. Like, you know, like
that's what I said. It's maybe not the right approach.
No, it's not. I think a couple websites picked it up as a supergroup, and I just sit there and I just like roll my eyes, like, you're begging the trolls to come hit this hard right now, because we don't. It's not that. A supergroup. The word super in you know, it connected with some sort of status.
Well, more than anything, I just want people to understand that it's like not you. It's not like John and the Boecklins. It's like you and some dudes who have done stuff.
I know, but usually it's doomed from the start,
yes.
Right? Like
usually those are the worst bands. Usually it's like you go see your friend in his new band, and it's like, oh no, I need to leave because he's going to ask me what I thought.
Straight up, like I guess I'll segue into this. Like, I thought about that all the time. Like, I was like, okay, what's the number one thing I can't do? Like, normally these guys end up just doing something that sounds derivative of what they've already done, but worse.
Yeah.
So
that's rough too.
It's real rough. It's a rough room, music business, especially, you know, given our ages. We're not like these 20s, you know. We weren't like, yeah, I was in Sleeping Sirens for 10 minutes and now I'm trying this out. It's like we all had pretty long established careers and long in bands for a while. So we're a bit older. But I thought about it like more than your average Joe. Kind of like my work ethic, but with my mind. Just like, okay, I can't
your mind was working overtime on it?
Yeah, just like, I got to make sure that I don't like just release one of those fucking bands that's just like, however, you can totally think that my new band sucks, but at least I know you're not going to be like, dude, it sounds like a God forbidden Devildriver put together. You know, it's like it's really got its own thing. And from, I know you've heard.
I was, honestly, dude, I was worried because, like, I figured at some point I'm going to have to talk to you and Doc about it, and maybe Tommy. I haven't talked to him in a while, but, like, at some point it's going to come up, and, like, these guys all got together, so it's going to, like, all these guys that I think are really good, but that just means it's going to suck. And, like, I'm so sad. Yeah, I'm so sad for my friends, but, like, I heard it, and it was badass, so it was, like, on my end, it was just pure relief.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Also, like, if someone's listening, it's like, well, this guy just thinks his new band's the shit. It's like, and like, I understand, like, I was the first to throw myself under the bus. Like, the first song, Learn to Live, which people have only heard, I'm very well aware that it's like a 1-2 punch on modern metal. It's like got that gent vibe and stuff. But I'm also saying that the rest, there's not one song that sounds like that song on the rest of the record. So it's like, we kind of delivered kind of like the meat and potatoes for to like not throw people off too much, you know, but like, I think it was a good move to kind of get our original, any members fan base, that what they have left of a fan base, like, you know, to keep them interested, you know, like, okay, it's not some shocking left or right, but there's a lot of ups and downs to this record. And going back to like thinking over time about not repeating yourself, I just made sure that not only does this material not sound like anything else we've done, that the record from front to back is not, it's not a Hatebreed through and through. It's not a Devildriver through and through, you know. It's like, it's definitely, you're going to be like, this is the same band? Like, whoa. So those are the two goals. Now, whether that will work, that's the yet to be told. Some people, you know, we might lose some of our fan base from stretching out different boundaries, but gain other ones there. We'll see if our formula works or not, you know. That's yet to be seen.
Yeah, yet to be seen, but at least so far so good. And the reaction I've seen has been super positive. I thought that the new song was awesome, and I won't have you on to talk about stuff like this if I didn't, because I would have just not. I would have, you know, even if I had you on, I would have cut it off at talking about guitar. So, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so, I think it's good. And I like, in people who know me real well know I am like a hole poker. Like, I'm always waiting for something to fail. And so that kind of always, when I listen to interviews that I do, it kind of comes across like that, like a little bit like, well, you know, we'll see how it goes. And we tried real hard. Well, you know, cause I'm not like a salesman, like a fucking cheap car salesman. Like, where do you see this puppy? Like, you know, it's just fucking cheesy. Like, I can find problems in every piece of material I've ever written and done. And I think that's an honesty that some people don't have, that you should, you know?
I completely agree. That's one of the reasons I don't have musicians on this podcast very often, is because they're full of shit, for the most part.
You know, when I wrote that, I just knew.
It's like, no, you
just starting with that line. I just channeled those riffs, bro. You know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, first of all, it's fucking boring, and second is bullshit, and nobody cares. But I think it's I think that there's also something to be said for just the fact that, like, you've still got a lot of musical expression left in you, because I don't know. I mean, am I mistaken that you wrote a lot of that stuff and played a lot of that stuff too?
No, you're definitely mistaken there. I wrote a little bit here and there, but it was me and this Max Karen who wrote the entire record together. And I noticed his talents as a guitar tech, and I was like, wow. And then when I figured out I was leaving Devildriver, I got into a room with him, and we kind of channeled, you know, yeah, not channeled, but, you know.
You just kind of knew it was the one.
Yeah, well, no, it took us a long time to, like, get to where the album ended up. But just, we had a natural connection in terms of, like, writing. It was fun together, but also we'd pull each other's hairs out. But then at the end of the day, we're still friends. It wasn't like, I fucking hate this dude. So it was like, it was good. It took like a year and a half of writing to finally start getting where the songs were like, yeah, I think this is it. And he is fucking phenomenal rhythm player. So this was the first time ever where I was like, I remember, I think I said this before in some other interview, but when I first started, I came in writing all the songs. So I came in like with these songs written, and I just watch him play and I'd be like, fuck it, you play it. Like, you know, there was like no contest. You know what I mean?
Well, hey, I just think that that's interesting that even, you know how a lot of guys, if they had been in your shoes for all those years where the guitar gets passed to you, and now they're like onto some other project that hasn't proven itself yet, they would have been like, well, you know, in my last band, I play the riffs, so who's got the sales here, buddy? You know?
I fucking can't stand when that shit gets around. But yeah, it's like, dude, I sold some records, man. Fucking let me try. But you know, the fucking that goes back to what I said earlier. It's like, if you're not the best guy in the room, like, just give it up. Like, what's the problem? Just make the process easy. But if I was, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you think I'm a good rhythm player, it's like I'm like a 4, he's a 10. So it was like beyond no and plus he would take my kind of like take Learn to Live, the first song. I wrote that whole song, but he maxified it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He made things just a bit more complex. And like that verse, I can't do it now, but I could play you the demo I had of me playing it, and then you can hear the record with him doing it. It's night and day. That like how much like he's a younger, he understands rhythm much more than I do. Like in terms of being that tight, and you know, instead of just sitting there beating myself over, I was like, yeah, fuck it, you do it, man. Sounds fucking amazing, you know?
He's got that, I guess, that touch, that like that younger generation touch with those types of gent rhythms that they just get.
It's more their it's their wheelhouse. They grew up. I don't know about you, but like, you know, shit did not fucking grow up playing that.
No, I definitely did grow up playing that stuff. I grew up playing like riffs, not patterns.
Me too. So it just seems like you said, you grew up playing riffs. So did I.
Yes.
And
riffs, not patterns.
It seems like Meshuggah's, riffs, not patterns. It seems like Meshuggah just, especially with Obzin, like just kind of had this rebirth connection to like the band became 10 times bigger after Obzin than it ever was. And it seems like the youth really connect, especially with Periphery coming up, and then like I think a youth just really recognized Meshuggah as, like, even though they've been around for 20 years before that, like I think defined kind of a generation of writers, you know. And Max is like in that wheelhouse where like, oh yeah, these patterns, they're nothing to me, no problem, you know.
I can definitely tell you that there's a divide among players, and I've seen it in the studio. There are some guys who just get those types of patterns. It's in their DNA, and it's like, it's just in how they play. It's not a big deal. And there's some guys to where that kind of stuff is just like, it would be like me trying to play funk or something. Like, it just wouldn't work. Like, me playing funk is a disaster. And a lot of, you know, there's just a certain breed of metal player who, maybe it's not that bad, but like who, these types of patterns are just not in their DNA. And they just don't have it, you know, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So I have some questions from our audience for you, because we had some stoked people that you were coming on. So I'd like to ask you them, if you don't mind.
I love it.
All right. So this one is from Luis Jaime Flores, and he's saying, hello, John. When I try to write a song, I always struggle with the transitions between riffs. What advice do you have to get better at this?
I know exactly what he's talking about, because I think you as a guitar player, everyone sits there, how the fuck am I going to connect these? Well, I think in the terms of like, okay, I just think in terms of up and down. Like, you know, like, am I going to climb in the next part, or am I going to descend in the next part? And then if that doesn't really work, then I go to like, then I think about like some sort of jarring move that I could do, which a good example of that, what I was saying about is like, I heard that Pantera always struggled getting into the chorus of I'm Broken, you know? And then like in the end, it was Rex's idea. What about it? like, you know, it's like just a stupid, weird idea that finally connects the dots, you know? So it's like if the ups and downs for me don't work in terms of rhythmically, and they come, sometimes you find yourself going to cheesy, like, you know, 0-5-3-6, like move to get somewhere. It's like just stupid. Then I try to go for the jarring thing, but I don't know. That's off the top of my head. Those are the first things that come to mind.
So you actually have, it sounds like you actually have like a set of, I guess, things that you'll try right away if you can't think of a transition. Like, how do you take the intensity up or take the intensity down?
Yeah, exactly. Like an up and down. It's like, okay, if you have two riffs you're trying to connect, where's one, where's the other? Would it make sense to try and go up to the one or down to the other? It's just like that common sense kind of like, how would I connect these? And then as I got older, I realized that sometimes that it's like you're making the same choices over and over, and sometimes it's a little too predictable, and sometimes smooth is not. I like fucking aggressively, strangely get into the next part, and then everyone go, damn, you know?
Yes. All right, so here's one from Bay Georgian, which is, hey, John, while I know creativity is different for everyone, I feel like some of the best songs are written from a combination of both great creativity as well as specific process that some musicians have found for themselves and gotten down to a close science. Do you have a process? And if so, what's it like?
I would disagree with his statement.
Me too.
That there's the best in the world have it down to a science. No, I don't think. I think you're just good or you're not, and you get lucky or you don't. And my process is usually starts with watching TV on guitar, and I'm playing something, not paying attention, and someone catches my ear. I go, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I kind of focus. I turn the TV off, and I start from there. And then if I get something, all right, and I took Billy Joel's advice, which I always thought was very strong. I only work on stuff like 5 to 6 to 10 minutes at a time. I don't sit there and work on something for 3 hours straight. I just go, okay, cool. Where would I naturally go here? But if I don't come up with something, I put it down. I go fuck off. And then but I remember what I started. So then I'll come back to it. And then usually it just ends up working. It's a little bit longer than other ones, you know, but there is no science where you go, okay, I got the recipe. Let's do it again. Let's just make millions. And it's that easy. So I did notice, and some of the stuff I think I work the hardest on ends up being everyone's least favorite and whatever. But like Clouds Over California was one of Devildriver's biggest songs, and that was like nothing about that had any science and never was repeated again. Like it was a riff that Mike had that was super slow. I suggested we speed it up. And then from there it took shape, and Mike had the harmonic part, and then I wrote the intro, and it was just like, and we all did it all within one day, and it was very easy and fun. And then Des did a great job on top of that. So if that was a recipe, I wouldn't know how to recreate it. You just can't. You get lucky, and sometimes you don't, you know?
Absolutely. So here's one from Jack Hartley, which is, how far do you get with a song or idea before you bring other people in on the creative process? And what are some of the challenges of being such an independent creative force in a full band situation?
Well, yeah, it depends on what situation I'm in. In Devildriver, in the end, and most of the time, I would bring fully presented full songs. I'd write them all myself and come down. And then sometimes what you thought was going to work doesn't, and you make changes on the spot. But for the most part, I work stuff out a lot on my own and bring it to the table as completed, and it usually stays that way. However, change to now, I stopped doing that approach as working with Max and Bad Wolves. I find that the goal that we're trying to do, we don't have like a brand that we know and we're following up with. So I kind of just leave things more open and we kind of flow. It's a little bit more painful working together, trying to make that stuff happen, but I'm leaving it more open-minded, and because I'm in no need or want to control a musical situation. So I just kind of go in and, hey, I throw out ideas like, let's write a song like this Faith No More song like that. And we just start like that. You know what I mean? Let's just kind of pick up on a vibe and the mood you're in. And that worked really well for us on this first record.
All right. Charles Ruiz is wondering, do you find you need to get in a creative mindset for a specific instrument to complete a song idea? Or do you have a cascade of ideas that lead into one another as you work on a song? Like, do you need to get into drum mode or guitar mode? Or is it all just like, I'm working on this, and now I'm working on this, and now I'm working on this?
Well, everything I do on guitar, that is much more of a loosely thing. Drums, yeah, I got to get in drum mode, mainly for simple reasons. I need to drive there to go do it. I need to like devote my time into a small room where, and it's physical, so I have to be in the mood to be up and out, and so then I need to create a routine that's like that, like working out. It's like once I get in that mode, I don't stop. So, but with writing guitar, like, because I write all the guitar first, and then maybe we'll do program drums or something, and then go back. And then I fine tune all the drums. So that's like my mode. I'm like, all right, this is drum mode of writing, you know. And when I'm in drum mode, that goes hand in hand of being creative and focused. So when I come home, I do the guitar stuff in terms of working out what I need to, and in terms of if I'm going to be recording guitar, practice what I need to, you know. But creatively, writing guitar is much more loose. Like I said, writing a house, writing TV. But in general, the situation that usually we're going to have to be alone. I don't enjoy writing when there's anybody else in the room.
I feel you on that.
Yeah.
Okay, dude, I'm going to fuck this name up. Fuck. All right, I'm just going to ask the question, and, you know, I'm sorry, dude, who asked it. Your name is just not within my capabilities, and it's just not. So, hey, John, love drums and sick arrangements on Devildriver. How do you approach to achieve that arrangement? Do you like have overall vision of the song and write it from start to finish, or do you collect different ideas and then glue them into the song?
It's hard to know if he's just talking about the band Devildriver or self-titled album Devildriver, but in general, I think he's just talking in general, so I'll shoot for that.
Sure.
Everything, you know, once the basic, you know, you got the tempo of a song, so then you basically know if you're going to be living where your snare's living on the 1 and the 3 or the 2, or, you know, where once those kind of decisions are made, the basic format's there, and then I get into a room, and then usually everything is coming off of improv. And the more I play to the song and get into it, like with headphones, and I'm playing to guitars and trying, like, I get excited, and then that's when, like, you'll do some sort of pull something out of your ass and, okay, cool. So that's the mode I need to get into to, like, get the special fills going, you know? And that's about it. And then also that magic happens also when you're actually recording too, when you just go for shit, you know? Mm-hmm. But it's when I say go for shit, it's not, this isn't like, it's metal kind of 101. It's not like, all right, I'm going to go off and do a 5 pattern, like just like a jazz, just see the band follows, you know, it's not crazy improv. It's just kind of fun.
So Chad Bill Anderson saying, when you were in Devildriver, did you ever find yourself wishing you were playing guitar or bass instead of drums?
I don't think wishing is the right word, but there was times where I just like, man, I could really play guitar in this band, and I just never enjoyed, you know, when the drums fuck up, everything fucks up. You know, guitar players can fuck up all, and that was, so maybe it was like a little bit of jealousy issue with that, like, yeah, sometimes the pressure of being a drummer is a little high. That's all. But I don't think I sat around and wished, you know. Bass player, though, that's a fun gig.
I mean, yeah, it definitely does seem like a fun gig.
And fun, but I mean, like, sometimes not that challenging, and also, you know, like, you can really be, like, miss a lot of notes and whatever, and, you know, you're still riding through the show looking good, you know?
Yes. So Charlie Monroe is wondering, I recall an interview where you said you thought Pray for Villains was over-edited or something along those lines. If this is the case, I was wondering what constitutes over-editing to you, and when would you call it a bad thing in this genre?
I don't think I use the word over edited. I think I just use the word over polished. Like, I think that record too, I think there are like some parts that were like definitely like quantized too, like a little bit too much where it just feels stiff. Like, I'm trying to think of an example on that. I think there's a song called Pure Sincerity, where it's very fast double bass, and it sounds great, but to me, I was like, I know I didn't play it that perfect, like, where it just sounds kind of like a typewriter machine just going, you know what I mean? And we would have problems, we still play that song, and we played that song, and it sounded fine live too. It's just, I think we got like a little, if it's not fucking perfect, man, then fix it, kind of mode, and like trying to compete with like the kind of computer game video, fucking metal records that were coming out around that time. Where I think now feel is coming back a lot more and like not being overproduced, but I think around that time we were just being competitive with what was around us too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So here's one from Max Morden, which was, being a drummer and multi-instrumentalist, how do you approach hearing protection?
How do I approach it?
Yeah.
I protect my ear.
You put stuff in your ears. Well, I mean, do you have any custom earplugs or in-ears, or you always wear hearing protection, or you one of those guys that's like, nah, it'll grow back?
No, I think I stopped around, I can't really remember when I was like, this needs to change, because my monitors were so loud and I didn't wear earplugs. So I just went to in-ears, and I can't even remember the company I started with. And I would break and step on, they're expensive as fuck, and I would break and step on them. So then I really don't, I'm not picky. I use in-ears because I use my own, the only thing I have in my ears is my own kick, and a click track. So that's all I need it for. So I get whatever I get my hands on. I'll go to Guitar Center, pick up some $200 ones until they run out. And usually the water from the sweat ends up like searing one out, and then I go get another one. All
right.
And so my in-ears are my hearing protection, as long as I don't play shit too loud.
Makes sense. John Gansner is wondering, when you hit your creative flow state, how do you go about harnessing your ideas? Is it a gut feeling you go off of, or the reactions and input of your band that keep the flow inspiring? And how does your creative flow state feel to you?
It's definitely a gut feeling. It's not based off my band members. And the same for them. Some, don't have the feeling that they do. So they'll show you something. It's very rare where you're like, are you fucking kidding me? That's basically the best riff I've ever heard. So if you're looking for that if you're looking for that sort of, hey, check this out. If you're looking for, God, why am I fucking flailing on the word, acceptance, then you're probably not going to get what you might get discouraged. So just get shit as good as you can.
You're looking for that kind of hand job.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, but it's I don't know. That's how it works. And Devildriver was like, cool, let's check it out. But Mike was always the guy recording our stuff, and he was never with like anything. It'd take him a lot of times to let things set in before he's like, dude, you know what? That's really good. So I was never looking like, anybody want to suck my dick right now? Because I think this is awesome. But yeah. I always went with my gut feeling myself, and like I was saying before, when I got onto an idea, I would know on my gut, oh, this is worth exploring, and I would mentally get in a mode where it's like, okay, for the next couple of days, that's what I'm working on. I'm gonna make it the best I can.
All right, and I'm just seeing he wrote some more stuff, but I feel like we already covered it. So Giovanni Angel's wondering, what kind of coffee do you drink to stay so productive?
Wow, I do not drink coffee.
That's the answer.
Yeah. Sometimes I get in and out of teas. but not too much. I can't drink coffee. I get way too. Coffee to me there's no difference between doing that and cocaine. Like I get super amped up, and I can't like be myself. I feel like I'm high, so I can't really do it too much.
Fair enough. All right. I think, well, that concludes the questions I'm going to ask, because everything else we kind of already covered. Dude, thank you for coming on and talking to us, and nice talking to you again, and congrats with the new band, for real. Like, it actually is really awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was great to talk to you too.
Yeah.
My pleasure if I could be on here and help spread the word of the new band too. And thanks for like making. I know that isn't the point of this podcast, so it was nice to get a little bit of words on that. That was great. Thank you.
Well, we'll definitely. I mean, it's a production podcast, but still, like, if they want to hear a cool mix, they should go listen to the single by Bad Wolves, and we're gonna actually embed the music video in the show notes for this episode.
Okay.
So anyone who wants to hear what it is that we've even been talking about with John's new band, just go to the page for this episode and you can check it out.
Yeah, and his production, that was mixed and recorded by Mark Lewis, so everyone can know that. There you go.
There you go. Great.
Alrighty. All right. Well, thank you for having me on, and I don't know who says goodbye first, so let's do it.
All right. Goodbye first. All right, man.
Okay.
Take it easy.
Right,
Thank you.
The Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast is brought to you by Two Notes Audio Engineering. Two Notes is a leader in the market for load box, cabinet, and mic simulators. Gone are the days of having ISO rooms or having to record an amp at ear-bleeding volumes to capture that magic tone. The Torpedo Live, Reload, and Studio allow you to crank your amp up as loud as you want, but record silently. Check out www.2-notes.com for more info. To ask us questions, make suggestions, and interact, visit nailthemix.com/podcast and subscribe today.